There's a quiet lie sitting at the center of modern retirement advice. It doesn't scream, it doesn't look dangerous. In fact, it often comes dressed as guidance, responsible, even helpful. The lie is simple. If you just work a little longer, save a little more, and delay retirement a few more years, everything will finally fall into place. That sounds wise, doesn't it? It sounds patient. It sounds disciplined. But for a lot of people, that belief quietly turns into a trap, because the promise behind it is that more time will solve what clarity could solve right now. And here's the part nobody says out loud. Delaying retirement can help. Of course it can. More working years may mean more savings, fewer years drawing from your accounts, and maybe a larger Social Security check. But help is not the same thing as a cure. Those are not the same thing at all. The real question isn't how long can you keep working, it's how strong is the income that will carry your life once work stops. Let that sink in. Because a lot of people spend years chasing a later date when what they really need is a better understanding of the day after retirement begins. Think of it this way. Your income floor is like the foundation of your house, strong, underground, invisible, but holding everything up. Your savings? That's more like the furniture. Nice furniture matters, comfortable furniture matters, but if the foundation is weak, the whole house feels shaky, no matter how beautiful the living room looks. That's why a big account balance can still leave you nervous, and a modest nest egg can still leave you calm. What most people are taught to stare at is the furniture, the statement, the total, the headline number, but what quietly decides how retirement feels is the floor underneath your feet. Let me just say, if this content resonates with you, the subscribe button is right there. I never waste my viewers' time. And today, I want to give you something more valuable than another generic retirement rule. I want to give you a better lens. Let me show you what I mean with two people. Robert is 67. He spent 35 years as a public school teacher. He lives with his wife in a modest paid-off house. He has about $210,000 saved. Not tiny, not huge, just solid and ordinary. James is 65. He worked as an operations manager for a manufacturing company. He and his wife live in a newer home with a mortgage that still has 12 years left on it. He has $840,000 in retirement accounts. On paper, James looks like the clear winner. But watch what happens when morning starts for each of them. Robert makes coffee, looks at the yard, and talks with his wife about taking a small trip in the fall. He is not reckless. He still checks the budget. But his face is calm. He knows roughly what comes in every month, and he knows their fixed costs are covered. James wakes up earlier than he wants to. He checks the market before breakfast. A bad week in stocks changes his mood. A headline about inflation follows him through the day. He is proud of what he saved, and he should be. But quietly, silently, that large number has become a number he feels responsible for protecting every hour. So who is actually more secure? The man with the larger pile of money, or the man with the steadier stream of income and lower pressure? The real question isn't who saved more. It's who built a life that depends less on guessing what the market will do next. Imagine walking onto a car lot. Every vehicle has a sticker price, bold, official, intimidating. It looks final, non-negotiable, but nobody pays the sticker. They look at financing, trade-ins, insurance, fuel, maintenance, and what they can actually live with each month. Retirement should be viewed the same way, yet people keep chasing one big number, $1 million, sometimes 2 million, numbers that float around the internet like magic passwords. Reach this amount and you are safe. Miss it and you are behind. But that message leaves out the part that matters most. What kind of monthly life does your plan actually support? A person with $1.2 million in high spending can be on thinner ice than a person with $250,000, a pension, and strong Social Security. Real data and perceived data are not always the same. One is what your balance says. The other is what your life feels like when bills arrive. What do you think? Are most people actually behind on retirement, or are they just measuring it wrong? Keep that close as we go. Because once you see retirement through the lens of income instead of only savings, a lot of fear starts to lose its grip. I want you to imagine your retirement in two parts, not one big number, two distinct piles. Pile one is income that shows up no matter what. Social Security, a pension, an annuity if you have one. Pile two is your savings, your IRA, your 401k, your brokerage account. Both matter, but they do not do the same job. Pile 1 pays the electric bill when the market is ugly. Pile 1 buys groceries when headlines get dramatic. Pile 1 keeps the lights on when your emotions want to make a bad decision. Pile 2 is important too. It gives flexibility. It absorbs surprises. It funds travel, gifts, repairs, joy. But without Pile 1, Pile 2 carries too much pressure. Robert understood that, even if he never used those exact words. His teacher pension is not huge, but it exists. His Social Security is steady. His house is paid off. His wife has her own smaller benefit. Together, their monthly guaranteed income covers most of what they truly need. Their savings are there to support life, not to hold life together alone. James has more money, but less certainty. He planned to delay retirement because he thought one more year would fix the uneasiness. Then one more year turned into 2, then 3, and the feeling did not leave. Because the issue was never only the size of his accounts. The issue was the weight those accounts were carrying. It's not about who has more saved, it's about who has more certainty. You may already have what people with millions are searching for, not a perfect plan, not a flashy plan, just a plan where your monthly life is quietly supported before your investment accounts are asked to do too much. Think of your Social Security benefit like a faucet. Behind that faucet is a pipe, one you've been filling your entire working life. Every paycheck, every tax contribution, it all builds pressure in that pipe. When you turn the faucet on at 62, the stream starts smaller. At full retirement age, around 67 for many people, it gets stronger. At 70, stronger still. That makes delaying sound obvious. Bigger check later, problem solved. But now listen, a larger monthly number is not automatically the best answer for every person, because while you wait, you are living on something else. Maybe your savings, maybe part-time work, maybe stress, maybe time and health you do not get back. The real question isn't what's the best age in theory, it's what's the best decision for your life right now. If delaying until 70 means draining your accounts too hard, or forcing yourself through miserable work, or losing years you wanted to spend with your spouse while you are both healthy, then the math is no longer just math. On the other hand, claiming early at 62 without understanding the long-term trade-off can quietly shrink the strength of your future income floor, especially if you live a long time, especially if you are married, and one spouse may depend on the survivor benefit later. Social Security is personal. The calendar alone cannot decide it for you. Here's a question for the married folks. Have you and your spouse ever actually talked about what happens if one of you is gone? Most couples delay that conversation because it feels heavy, but avoiding it does not make it less real. It just makes the weak spots harder to see until later. Think of Social Security not as an endpoint, but as a safety net, one you paid into your whole life, one that's designed to catch you when you need it most. For married couples, that net matters twice, because when one spouse dies, one Social Security check usually disappears. The household loses income, but many expenses do not fall by half. That is why survivor planning matters so much. If the higher-earning spouse delays, the survivor benefit can be meaningfully larger for the spouse who lives longer. And in many marriages, one person does live much longer. This is not a gloomy topic. It's a loving one. It is part of caring for each other while you still have the chance to plan clearly. Inflation is like an ice cube in the sun. It doesn't melt all at once. It creeps, it nudges, it slowly raises the cost of everything around you. Your groceries, your insurance, your property taxes, your health care. Most people do not wake up one morning and say everything doubled. They wake up after a few years and wonder why the same money feels tighter. This is where delaying retirement can fool you. You may think, if I just earn a little more and save a little more, I will finally feel ahead. But inflation quietly chases you the whole time. The target moves. Prices erode purchasing power silently. So if your plan is built only on reaching a bigger account balance, the finish line can keep drifting away. Social Security does have COLA adjustments, cost of living increases. They are not perfect, and they may not match your personal inflation exactly, especially if your health costs rise faster than average. But they matter. That monthly check has a feature many people ignore. It can adjust upward over time. That is not exciting. It is not flashy. It is just incredibly useful. James overlooked that for years. He kept looking at his account total and telling himself he would feel safe once it crossed a certain line. First it was $700,000, then $800,000, then $1 million. He kept moving the goalpost because the feeling he was chasing was not created by the total. It was created by certainty, and certainty was missing. Quick question. Have you ever felt guilty about spending money in retirement? A lot of good savers do. They spend decades building the pile, and then when life finally tells them it is okay to use it, they hesitate. That hesitation is not weakness. It is what happens when savings become identity. Some things in life are heavy but invisible, like carrying a backpack all day. You get used to it, but it never goes away. That is what financial stress feels like in retirement. You may look fine from the outside. You may even have a strong balance sheet, but inside, the invisible weight keeps asking, what if this is not enough? That weight gets heavier when your expenses are higher than you admit. And this is another place where people quietly misread their own situation. They underestimate what retirement costs because they picture a calm, simple life. Then life answers with roof repairs, dental work, travel to see family, helping adult children, rising premiums, and the 1,000 little nudges that reality brings. Robert and his wife did something simple but powerful. Before he retired, they tracked every real expense for a full year. Not the hopeful version, the real version. They looked at holidays, car maintenance, medications, gifts, everything. It was boring. It was not exciting, but it gave them clarity, and clarity removed a lot of fear. James never really did that. He had estimates, rounded numbers, good intentions, but not a clear map. So even with more money, he felt less grounded. Because uncertainty is expensive. It drains peace. It makes every market dip feel bigger. It makes every spending decision feel loaded. Numbers matter, but how you feel about those numbers matters just as much. And if you wait too long to turn the faucet on, some of that water never reaches you. It just stays in the pipe, unused, gone. No refunds, no second chances. That does not mean everyone should claim early. It means waiting has a cost too, even when the monthly benefit gets bigger. This is why the phrase delay retirement until everything is fixed can be so misleading. Everything is rarely fixed. Life is not a broken machine that one extra year completely repairs. Sometimes one extra year helps. Sometimes it exhausts you. Sometimes it helps one part of the plan while quietly hurting another part, like health, joy, or time with people you love. There is also a difference between delaying retirement and delaying claiming Social Security. Those are connected decisions, but they are not identical. You might retire from full-time work and still wait on Social Security. You might claim benefits and still work part-time. You have more combinations than people often realize. More combinations means more room for a smart personal plan. Let me ask you something. Do you know what your monthly income will actually look like when you retire? Be honest with yourself. Not what your account might be worth if the market is kind. Not what you hope things cost. The actual cash flow, month by month. Because that is where confidence is built. Here is where sequence of returns risk enters the picture, and I want to keep this simple. Think of your retirement savings like a garden hose watering a young tree. If someone steps on the hose right when the tree most needs water, the early damage can be hard to undo. In retirement, that step on the hose can be a market drop in your first few years. If you are pulling money from investments while the market falls early, the damage can compound. You are not just losing value on paper, you are selling shares when prices are down, which leaves fewer shares to recover later. That is sequence of returns risk. Not a fancy term to impress you, just a reminder that early timing matters more than people think. This is another reason a stronger income floor matters so much. If more of your basic spending is covered by Social Security, pension income, or other guaranteed sources, you may not need to pull as much from investments during bad market years. That can quietly protect your future. In a way, another $20,000 or $30,000 of savings may not. Think of pension income like part of the house foundation too. It may not look dramatic on a statement, which is why people often undervalue it. But if a pension sends you $2,000 a month for life, that is not a side detail. That is a powerful support beam in your retirement house. Many people treat it like background noise when it should be front and center. Let me ask you, have you ever calculated what your pension is actually worth in real dollars? Most people never do. They see the monthly amount and shrug because it does not look like a big lump sum. But if that monthly amount is steady for life, its practical value can be enormous. James used to dismiss Robert's pension because it sounded small. Then he sat down and did the math. If you had to create the same income privately, using your own savings, You might need several $100,000, depending on rates and assumptions. Suddenly, the picture changes. What looked modest starts to look strong. Real data beats perceived data again. And this is where modern retirement talk often quietly misleads you. It praises the visible pile and ignores the invisible supports. It celebrates the million-dollar saver and overlooks the person with lower expenses, a paid-off house, a decent pension, smart Social Security timing, and fewer emotional landmines. But retirement is lived in monthly cash flow, not in bragging rights. Robert is not rich. He knows that. He still shops carefully. He still plans around bigger purchases. But he sleeps. He takes walks in the morning. He volunteers twice a week. He and his wife visit their grandson without turning every weekend into a budget crisis. His plan is not glamorous. It is livable, and that matters more. James, meanwhile, kept chasing a feeling that his spreadsheet could not create. He thought retirement would feel safe once the total got high enough. But the anxiety stayed because the structure stayed weak. Higher fixed costs, a mortgage, more dependence on withdrawals, less clarity around what they actually spent. He was not poor. He was exposed. You don't need perfection to have a successful retirement. You need clarity. Stop measuring yourself against everyone else. Start focusing on what truly gives you freedom. Sometimes that freedom comes from a bigger portfolio. Sometimes it comes from lower spending, better timing, and income that quietly keeps showing up. Let me ask you this. If you could go back 10 years, what would you do differently with your retirement planning? Most people answer with save more. And fair enough. Saving matters. But many would also say they wish they had understood the relationship between income, expenses, and timing a lot sooner. Let us talk about the phrase I hear all the time. I will just delay retirement until things feel safer. Safer than what? Safer than today. Safer than your fear. Safer than inflation. Safer than your health at 62. Safer than your energy at 68. If you do not define what safety means, you can spend years chasing a moving shadow. For one person, delaying may absolutely be the right move. Maybe you love your work, maybe your earnings are still high, maybe each extra year meaningfully raises your future benefit and lets you avoid claiming too early. Great. But that decision should come from a clear trade-off, not from a vague hope that time alone will fix uncertainty. For another person, delaying can quietly erode the very life retirement was supposed to protect. If work is grinding you down, if your spouse is ready now, if your health is changing, if your income floor is already strong enough, then more delay is not automatically wisdom. It may simply be fear wearing the costume of responsibility. I want to know, have you ever felt like you were doing everything right but still felt behind? You are not alone. That feeling is common because retirement planning is often taught backwards. People are shown giant targets first and real life second. No wonder so many disciplined people still feel quietly defeated. The real question isn't how big does my nest egg need to be to impress a headline. It's how much reliable income do I need to support the life I actually want. That is a very different question. It is smaller for some people, bigger for others. But it is real. It belongs to your life, not somebody else's chart. And your life includes a spouse if you have one. It includes the possibility that one of you may need care first. It includes the chance that one person becomes the survivor and has to carry the plan forward alone. A good retirement plan is not just about the first happy year. It is about how the plan holds up when life stops being neat. That is why I want you to think in scenarios, not fantasies. What happens if the market falls early? What happens if one Social Security check disappears? What happens if health costs rise faster than expected? What happens if you live into your 90s? Quiet planning now can prevent loud pain later. Here is something to think about. If you found out today that you're actually on track, how would that change your week? Would you breathe differently? Would you stop doom-scrolling scary headlines? Would you finally enjoy dinner without that low hum of financial fear in the background? Sometimes peace begins with a better question, not a bigger account. So let me give you a practical framework. First, calculate your income floor. Add up the money that should arrive each month no matter what. Social Security at different claiming ages, any pension income, any fixed annuity income. Write those numbers down clearly, not in your head, on paper. Second, get painfully honest about your real monthly expenses. Separate needs from wants, but include both. Housing, utilities, food, insurance, taxes, healthcare, transportation, gifts, travel, home repairs. The point is not to scare yourself. The point is to replace fog with facts. Fog creates fear. Facts create options. Third, run more than one Social Security scenario. Look at 62, full retirement age, and 70. Then, if you are married, look at survivor implications too. What happens to the household if the higher earner claims early and dies first? What happens if that person delays? This one choice can shape decades of future stability. Fourth, stress test your first 5 retirement years. Those early years matter because of sequence risk. Ask yourself how much spending could be covered without touching investments during a bad market. Could cash reserves help? Could part-time work help for a season? Could lower fixed costs help? A little planning here can preserve a lot later. Fifth, define what a good retirement day actually looks like for you. Not the fantasy version, the real version. Coffee, walks, grandkids, church, gardening, road trips, reading, time with your spouse. A smaller, calmer life is not a lesser life. In fact, for many people, it is the life they were hoping money would eventually make possible. Quick question for you. If your retirement income was completely guaranteed for life, would you feel different right now? Most people would, and that tells you something important. It tells you the hunger beneath all the saving is not just for more money. It is for steadiness. Steadiness changes behavior. It helps you spend without panic. It helps you invest without obsession. It helps you sleep when the news gets dramatic. It helps your marriage too, because money stress is rarely just about numbers. It leaks into tone, patience, choices, and the emotional climate of your home. If you already have a decent income floor, you may be much closer than you think. You're not behind. In fact, you may already be standing on one of the strongest financial foundations available today. That does not mean be careless. It means stop assuming a later retirement date is the only path to safety. And if your floor is weak, that does not mean panic either. It means you now know where to aim. Maybe you delay Social Security. Maybe you reduce fixed costs. Maybe you work part-time for a while instead of grinding through full-time misery. Maybe you think harder about housing. Maybe you build more cash reserves before you step away. Notice what we are doing here. We are moving from vague fear to visible choices, from one giant, intimidating question to several practical, smaller ones. That shift matters, because once you can see the levers, you can actually move them. And when you can move them, you stop feeling trapped. That is the quiet danger of the delay retirement and everything will be fine story. It sounds hopeful, but it can keep you passive. It can keep you waiting for comfort to arrive from the calendar instead of building comfort through planning. Time can help, but time without clarity is just time. Think about Robert and James one more time. Robert looked ordinary from the outside. Lower savings, simpler life, fewer status symbols. But his retirement works because his core bills are largely supported by dependable income, his costs are grounded in reality, and he and his wife planned for the life they actually live. James looked stronger on paper, bigger accounts, bigger house, bigger image of success. But paper strength is not always life strength. He was leaning too hard on the visible pile and not enough on the invisible structure. Once he saw that, he stopped obsessing over one more year and started redesigning the plan itself. That might mean downsizing. It might mean delaying one benefit instead of delaying your whole life. It might mean paying off debt before retirement. It might mean finally pricing out healthcare honestly. It might mean choosing certainty over ego. Different moves for different people, but the same goal underneath all of them. Retirement isn't about how much you've accumulated. It's about whether your income can support your life. The goal isn't just to survive retirement. The goal is to enjoy it, to breathe, to stop staring at charts during breakfast, to make room for ordinary days that feel full instead of financially haunted. If the system only rewards you with almost enough, you will spend your entire life chasing more. But if you understand your numbers, if you build your income, if you define your life on your terms, you don't chase anymore. You decide. And that is the shift from fear to clarity, from chasing to choosing, from not enough to enough. And once you see that clearly, retirement stops feeling like a verdict and starts feeling like a life you can trust. Before you go, if this helped you see your retirement differently, subscribe. There's more where this came from.